Bacon?
No, I want my bacon. I gotta tell you something. Bacon is good for me.
So, Scott, I want to thank you for pioneering the Origin of Eatcies segment. I think it's a good way to kind of keep with our theme of the origins of words and phrases, but also keep us on something a little bit different, a little bit more specific. And, after you had made your statement about how we wanted to get it, we realized all the new slang goes back to TikTok and hip hop. I went into one that was actually TikTok inspired and was going to do. And as I dug into it, I'm like, the world doesn't need to know about this. So thank you for Origin of Eatcies. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I thought my inspiration for this Origin of Eatcies was my first month experiencing Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month as someone of the AAPI culture, since I've learned just a few months ago with the help of Giannis Pappas to identify as a Belgian Mongolian. So being consistent, I'm not somebody that's really into like, hey, let's section off and let's look at months. So I'm not like claiming this month for myself, but it gave me a chance just to think a little bit about that. And the food we're going to look at today, food product or drink, is Hawaiian Punch.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Hawaiian Punch.
So by the way, before we get into Hawaiian Punch, just a little background on Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Annual celebration that recognizes historical and cultural contributions of individuals and groups of Asian and Pacific Islander descent. It's an umbrella term that encompasses a whole lot of people. Let me say that one sentence again. This term includes all the cultures from the entire Asian continent, including East, Southeast, and South Asia, and the Pacific islands of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia.
Cool.
So I think
Love you all. Love all the Asians.
I like spreading a wide umbrella. And I think finding something that includes people from Pakistan and Hawaii is pretty much the definition of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like because there are so many people being honored or recognized or whatever these months mean, you'd hear more about it, but I feel like we don't hear as much about it as some other months.
I never really heard about it until last year. Last year was the first time. Were you aware of it last year? That was the first time I had.
I think was it around, because what is it? So it's May. So May. were we not to make light of it, but were we stopping Asian hate at that point?
We were.
Okay, I think that's why I heard of it. Yeah,
that's why I heard of it too, because there was an outbreak of white supremacy that somehow statistically had Black people attacking Asian people.
Right.
Which I'm kind of mixed on. I mean, I don't want to see anyone get attacked, but if like white supremacy is now being incorporated by Black people, hashtag diversity, is that a good thing? Probably not, but always try to look for the glass half full.
Well, also you have you're Asian, you're white. You, as far as I know, you don't have any African American in you, but you grew up on the mean streets of Virginia Beach. So we grew up with a lot of African Americans or Blacks, whatever they want to be called.
And you didn't say capital B, but I forgive you for that because it's AAPI month and I'm feeling extra tolerant. So speaking of tolerance, let's talk about Hawaiian Punch. So Hawaiian Punch originated in around 1934. And by the way, my resources for this are Wikipedia and an article, The Untold Truth of Hawaiian Punch on MASH.com. So Hawaiian Punch started in 1934 as a ice cream topping syrup.
Okay.
A gentleman by the name of A.W. Leo, along with two other guys, Tom Yates and Ralph Harrison, made it. It contained 5 fruit juices: orange, pineapple, passion fruit, guava, and papaya, all that were imported from Hawaii. However, customers found when they mixed it with water that by itself, the syrup tasted pretty good as a liquid, not just being as an ice cream topping. So from there, it was converted first as a mixer, where its first advertisements were geared, which makes sense when it really hit the popular consciousness in 1962. So a commercial was played in February 1962 on The Tonight Show with Jack Parr. And Jack Parr enjoyed the commercial so much that he had him play it again.
Oh, wow.
So it was a commercial that pretty much was reused over and over and over, a theme that we'll see. And Scott, if you could share that video of the commercial from this is the 1975 version, and you'll see why maybe it was so popular.
Let's do it.
Fruit juicy. Hey, how about a nice Hawaiian punch?
Sure.
Fruit taste. 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian Punch. 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian Punch. Hawaiian Punch is made with 7 kinds of fruit for a one-of-a-kind fruit taste.
Hawaiian Punch Fruit Punch with 10% real fruit juice for a real fruit juicy taste.
Hawaiian Punch is made with 7 kinds of fruit
For a one-of-a-kind fruit taste.
Wow. That brings back memories.
It does. So the commercial that Jack Parr saw also included the mascot Punchy, punching the man who's sometimes called Oaf, sometimes called Oli, punching him in the face, asking if he'd like a Hawaiian punch and then punching him in the face, which is still funny. I mean, they did it twice in that video. And something that commercial, pardon me. And something that's entertaining to me also is after bragging all the different flavors that you taste in there,
right?
It has 10%.
It's like just don't say anything. Like you're saying 10%.
Don't let it go. And
the other 90% is all parabens.
Yeah, it probably is. That could be another episode of that. So my history with this is something that I remember a lot through advertising, but mainly that. Like it's just always been around. I remember I'd seen that commercial. I remember the can. Scott, is this something that your family used or was a big part?
Absolutely not. So I think I've mentioned before that we were a sugar-free zone for the most part at my house. That was growing up. No sugar cereals, no sugar drinks. We cut the sugar in the Kool-Aid by at least half. So I had never had Hawaiian Punch until actually it was in like 5th or 6th grade. Somebody brought it in for a birthday party at the school we went to. And I do remember, like, it's weird how I remember where I was when I tasted it. And I didn't like it at all. It was way too sweet for me. And I've avoided it ever since. I don't think I've had it again, actually. What about you?
We have a very similar history with that, except the difference being our family was really big into, I would say really big into sugar. We weren't like pro sugar, but we weren't like one of those, we weren't a sugar-free family. So we often had sugar-free cereal and, we did healthy things like drank juice all the time. That was, at least more than 10% fruit juice.
Sunny D.
But even Hawaiian Punch was too much for our house. I mean,
Really?
I remember having it at one point too, and just even as a kid who abided a lot of sugar, was like, this is too much. This is just.
I was curious what you were going to say because I know your tolerance for y'all's had more sugar stuff. If it was more, so even for a family that didn't ban sugar, it was too much. Yeah.
So. It's something that, again, was around so much. And I did remember my research actually brought up a memory. For some reason, the product was so ubiquitous that we actually had a Hawaiian Punch board game at our house that I don't know how we did that if someone was late on getting gifts one year. But I remember playing it, not like hating it.
And by the way, I think we've talked about this before. I do love that I think season 5 has been the one where we've played the most like commercials. Those commercials were a big part of the entertainment of our youth, right? Like, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have, I know it's old to say we didn't have the internet, but those commercials were great. And you saw something like that, you waited for that commercial to come on again because it was high entertainment for us as kids in those days.
Yeah. And they did do a good job with branding with the mascot you see there, Punchy, who's just the more, he's like one of those things that the more you think about, the weirder it is. Apparently the thing on his head is a hat. It's supposed to be a straw hat.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was some sort of like weird haircut that he had.
Oh, interesting. I think I always kind of saw it as a hat, but when we pulled up the video of that, YouTube had like the other things next to it, and it had like a bunch of stuff that wouldn't be allowed today. And I'm going to go down the rabbit hole after this and watch all those because those commercials were really entertaining. But yeah, as soon as I looked at that, I said, oh, I know what that is. But the other thing too I wonder, does anyone like Hawaiian Punch? Like that should be a poll we put on our social or something, because I think they did. You mentioned they did a good job of branding. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, they did. I mean, you watch even that commercial now. I'm like, I want some Hawaiian Punch, even though I know it's not good. When
Right.
they're pouring it into the icy glass, and they something about the guy punching them, you're thinking this is going to just punch out my thirst. Like, let's go. But 10% juice. I mean, it can't be that good.
Yeah. Well, even then, like, and I think that was at the time too that it was uh had to be looked at as like not even then, I don't know,
Right.
maybe 10% was great. Maybe like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they've got that much juice into a drink.
Well, also there wasn't
Not,
the competition back then, right? Like I'm trying
yeah,
to think. I mean, I guess like Gatorade is a different thing, but that was after like I guess Kool-Aid was probably around, right?
yeah,
So that was probably the main competition, and that you didn't have to be that good, is my point back then.
yeah. Well, they're still around and the brand lasts,
Yep.
and it's currently owned by a very oddly named corporation, the Keurig Dr. Pepper Corporation.
Oh, really? That's
Yes,
interesting.
whose other brand holdings include, Dr. Pepper, obviously,
Yeah.
IBC Root Beer, Diet Right, Schweppes, and RC Cola, the,
Hmm.
Pabst Blue Ribbon of sodas. So
Yeah.
you had mentioned, are they still popular? And I think that
Yeah.
there's been some decline in market, but like with a lot of things, they've kind of spread from just a few options to untold number. So when it started, and quoting from Wikipedia, the original can flavors were called Rosy Red, later renamed Fruit Juicy, and
Hmm.
Sunshine Yellow.
Hmm.
A few years later, orange and grape were added. In 1975, when that commercial was aired, some of the other flavors added were Great Grape, Very Berry, and Fruit Punch Low Sugar, which I'd love to see what low
Yeah.
sugar equaled back then.
Right.
So from there, things have gone crazy. And here's some flavors from
Really?
2020 and beyond. So these are just the last couple years.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I'm not going to read all of them. Berry Blue Typhoon Juice.
Hmm.
Berry Bonkers Juice. Green Berry Rush.
What?
Green Green
Greenberry
Berry
Rush.
Rush.
Okay.
Mango Monsoon.
Uh-huh.
Punch Polar. And Whitewater Wave.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, these could all be names of deodorants that I buy accidentally when I think it's the normal deodorant.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that.
Yeah,
Also,
there's a Venn diagram with Old Spice scents that probably overlaps 100% with this.
there must be some market studies that say if you put the word rush or extreme into anything, it's going to get bought.
Mhm.
And now, as a dad of kids, I don't know what other kinds of dad there are, but
Yeah.
I will say I don't know when it happened. I think it was probably like early 2000s, but like all
Mhm.
of a sudden, everything started coming in blue raspberry or blue blast or whatever, or like you said, there's like glacier or something,
Yeah.
like white. Like I will never drink a white Gatorade. I mean, or anything. It's like, what's going on? Why blue and white? Just get the red stuff or the yellow stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm shouting at clouds, but
No,
it's
I think it's good to shout at clouds about this. The white, I agree with you on the white thing. And I found another article on mash.com
Mhm.
that ranked the Hawaiian Punch flavors worst to best and only did
Mhm.
13 because I think they were even, mash.com is always looking for things to post, but this was
Content.
a bit too much. And the worst flavor they had was the Whitewater Wave,
There you go.
which I think is supposed to have coconut in it. And it looks like what a jar full of liquid coconut would look like, and not very
Yeah.
appetizing, especially with Punchy surfing on it too. So,
Yeah, and I will say before this segment,
mm,
I would have, if I would have been asked how many flavors of Hawaiian Punch there were, I would have said one. I thought it was just Hawaiian Punch. I didn't know
right.
there were even other. And it makes me wonder, are these like are they just putting these out as novelty? Like, do people collect these like they collect weird baseball cards or weird, do people actually drink? Somebody goes to the store and is like, I want Whitewater Canyon Wave
Right.
Hawaiian Punch. I think they're just trying to get in the news. They probably only make like a dozen of these, but that's my
Right.
theory.
But now I'm going to get to the most important topic that we should look at with Hawaiian Punch, and frankly, what we should look at with everything. And is that, should Hawaiian Punch be canceled? You know, punchy, Hawaiian Punch represents Hawaii.
It's violence.
People should be offended because we're offended by everything. And I did some research, and I'm actually disappointed to say I really didn't find anything calling for Punchy to be canceled. I found one article entitled "Should Punchy Be Canceled?" For the Honolulu Civil Beat from 2021. And I was like, finally, here's something I can feel good about, to see somebody wanting this canceled. And basically argued, no, there's no reason for that. And focused on some other stuff about Hawaii that was being looked at. So I actually, for the first time in my life, I actually kind of want to see a campaign to see Punchy get canceled, that it'd be labeled as problematic, that it's some sort of racism or something. And I think maybe this is a month to do it. So keep an eye out there. If things get slow, there is a chance in my spare time I'm going to work to get Hawaiian Punch canceled, just so I don't feel left out. And also, too, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing if someone got rid of Hawaiian Punch.
Wow. I thought I was anti-cancel culture until now.
Yeah.
Hashtag cancel Punchy.
Yeah.
I'd retweet that. Just because the drink is bad. There's nothing offensive about Punchy.
Yeah.
Actually, but we'll always have the commercials. But yeah, if we could cancel Hawaiian Punch, I'd be okay with that.
And that's our very positive, very inclusive AAPI's Origin of Eatcies.
Bacon?
No, I want my bacon. I gotta tell you something. Bacon is good for me.